Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I first off want to say thanks for listening to me an extra time this week. We had some important changes in the weather, and I wanted to get out as many updates as I could to kind of keep you ahead of it. Well, let's take a look at what's going on right now. Our last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation, we know that the main feature has been this boundary that's been draped right in through this area. We've had, after Florence has kind of exited over here, higher atmospheric pressure really build in both in the lower levels and in the upper levels, and the flow around it has been wide open out of the Gulf of Mexico. We've been putting a lot of moisture up on that boundary, and we've seen repeated showers and thunderstorms in this area. So this is our last 72 hours. In the overnight hours on Wednesday, getting into early Thursday morning, we can still see that ring of fire configuration here as the flow just goes right around like this and sits on that same boundary. So this will be our focal point for the start of this forecast as we move forward, is what's going to be happening in that region right there. You see, in my classes on Thursday, my students are going to get a good helping here of upper level dynamics. Check this out. The map that I have animating on the top there, that shows you the flow of the atmosphere in the jet stream level. So we're about 250 millibars. We're pretty high. And the flow is basically doing something like this. I've been getting a lot of great questions about how it is that the upper levels of the atmosphere kind of influence the position and development of low pressure systems. And this is one of the things we teach our students. Here is our upper level ridge, also a surface high pressure center there. And here's the trough that comes swinging through the day on Thursday into Friday. And you see this pocket here of faster winds? Well, that's a jet streak. And what we teach our students is the right entrance region, which is right here on the jet streak, is a great region to get some upper level divergence. That's basically where air spreads out aloft. Secondly, just due to the curve in the flow, the fact that it kind of dips south here and then pulls back north there, that curvature actually gives you good upper level divergence in the same location. Now, what does all that mean? If you go straight underneath that, so look, now let's go down to the surface, we got a low that forms right here. Got a cold front sitting to it's kind of south and west of it, and then a warm front that kind of spreads out here. And there's that warm, moist air funneling in, and that's going to be what we're going to get a lot more precipitation out of this system as it moves towards the Great Lakes. Now, because the jet streak is right now, way up here north of the Great Lakes, this whole system is going to pull to the north, so I expect it to definitely go in that direction with time. But what I want you to pay attention to is not only that first one, but this second trough sitting right over here. This will be the trough that comes through as probably our third system that comes through that could really be influencing the weather here across the Corn Belt. So with that, let's kind of figure this one out. All right. Getting into the day on Thursday, this is going to be the region we're going to be watching for flood threat in the Corn Belt. So that is the area that they've got the flood watches out for now, and let me show you what's going on there. We'll take you to two locations. First, Albert Lea. This is in southeastern Minnesota, southern Minnesota, and we have Mason City, Iowa, which is in north central Iowa. What I want to point out is from May 1st, that's where we're starting this, getting all the way to present, we've got these accumulation graphs of precipitation. And right now in Albert Lea, they are 6+ inches ahead of where they would normally be this time of year. So this is normal. This is where they currently are. So things are already very wet, and they've recently had some big rainfall events in that area. Now take a look at northern Iowa, Mason City. Normal is right in through here, somewhere about, 21 inches, okay? Where are they right now? Well, they're currently having their wettest May to mid-September time period on record, and they're right now sitting around 36 inches. So if you think about that, that's a 15+ inch surplus in terms of precipitation, and this is the area that's going to be getting more of the rain in the coming days. What does it look like? Well, again, remember, we're watching the boundary here starting off the day on Thursday, and then the low that's going to follow that boundary moving toward the Great Lakes. So as I animate this out, what you're going to see here is that's exactly where the heaviest precipitation is spreading, just in the area we did that analysis right here in southern Minnesota, northern Iowa. What are some of my concerns? Well, if we get this much water into the soybeans, we're going to talk about soybean pod swelling. What does this do in terms of the standability of the corn? If we bring in some stronger winds here at the end, can it do some damage to the corn? Well, those are the things I'm going to be concerned with. But you can certainly see the kind of classic hook, or we call this a comma shape here in the flow of the atmosphere, where we're going to be seeing the heaviest precipitation with that system. Now, the one that follows it right down here comes through parts of Texas and getting over in Oklahoma, and slowly migrates in this direction over the coming days. But here we are looking at things through about 8 a.m. on Saturday. And the bigger question I want to get to, in addition to the heavy rain, is that this area has really kind of enjoyed quite a long stretch of drier weather. Now, we did have some thunderstorms right in through here that came through late in the day on Wednesday, but overall it's been pretty dry. And harvest is going like mad through this area, and how much longer is the window going to be open? So those are some of the questions we've got to answer. So let's try to get to the answer of that. We're going to start off by diagnosing the upper level flow pattern. So here we go. What I want to do first is I want to show you the systems that are sliding through. So here we go. This is Thursday night getting into Friday. So remember, here's the trough. It's between the trough and the ridge, best upper level support. So it's going to be this trough that swings the first low pressure system through the Great Lakes states up into northeastern Canada. Okay, so that goes through. That brings the cool down for Friday. Gives a chance for some rain that may even slide down into parts of Indiana, Illinois. We'll take a look at that in a second. But then after that, Saturday, Sunday, the weekend, we'll probably have the cooler air in place, but you can see the ridge kind of trying to redevelop there. So after the cooler air sweeps through the weekend, the next trough, remember the one I just pointed out to you, comes sweeping through the northwest. Now remember, the only reason why this one gets to move through is because of the dislodging of this ridge. It had been parked, nearly permanently sitting over this part of Alaska. It's now swung into the Gulf of Alaska. It's moving. We've got the whole thing moving, the whole wave train moving, and this trough comes through. Now watch where it goes. It comes digging on Monday into Tuesday and into Wednesday. Now that's going to be I guess what would be the third system that we're going to have to watch. Now the bigger question is, as I continue to animate this out, remember here we're looking at the EPS data. So this is the ensemble average from the European model. And what I want to point out as we move forward here is that you're going to be seeing the averages all come together, or each ensemble member come together to give you the average. And that means things kind of they look as though they get kind of stuck. So if I animate this out, look, we're getting out now to next Friday, next weekend. This is the following weekend. And what we end up seeing the atmosphere wanting to do is what the EPS, what the European model has been saying for quite some time. Western North American ridge, trough somewhere Hudson Bay to Great Lakes. And we're going to talk about that particular pattern here in a few moments. So keep that in the back of your mind. Now, what does this do in terms of precipitation? Well, let's pause this and take a look at what we're going to see. Here's the first system. So you can see there, just like I told you a few moments ago, this is in Iowa, Minnesota, North, South Dakota, parts of Nebraska, and Wisconsin starting event. As that goes toward the Great Lakes, see the front right in through here? That front comes sweeping through parts of Illinois, Missouri, of course, Wisconsin, Michigan, and eventually into Indiana. The question will be, does it have enough to put down, a substantial amount of precipitation? Right now, it looks dry. Here's the big high pressure system that comes in behind it. That's the cooler shot of air that we get after this system exits on Friday into Saturday morning. And that big high pressure system settles in on Saturday right there over the Great Lakes. Here's system number 2 going in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, dumping a lot of precipitation down there. Plenty of moisture still feeding on this one out of the Gulf of Mexico. All right, let's move forward. As we get past the weekend, now we're watching the next trough. Remember that one over here? Comes swinging through the Pacific Northwest. And as it comes out on Monday, you're going to see it basically kick off a broad area of lower pressure right in through here. So basically stretching all the way from Colorado, getting up to Minnesota. And that low pressure system gets going and goes right on off to the Hudson Bay. So it too drags a big cold front through this area, giving us our next chance at some cooler weather. So we have 2 big shots of cooler weather. Now, it's not wise for me to show you an operational model run looking at precipitation going out beyond about 7 or 8 days, but I will at least kind of show you this. Here we are 7 days out, so this is now getting pretty far out in the forecast. We do see the model wanting to continue to do the same thing, bringing these big sweeping cold fronts. So don't pay too much attention to the placement and timing, but just know that things stay active. All right, total accumulated precipitation. Well, let's take a look at it. We kind of step back there, look at this. This is Thursday getting into Friday. System number 1 dumps a lot of precipitation from parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, northern Iowa, Wisconsin. So it takes on off. You see that we may bring in the chances in Friday afternoon, evening, coming into parts of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana as that sweeps through. System number 2, right in through here, goes really dumping quite a bit of precipitation on Texas, northern Texas, and Oklahoma. And then you'll see this toward the end here. Now we're on Saturday night into Sunday. Before we show you that next system, do you see that right in through here up to this point, our only chances of precipitation are really on Friday afternoon and evening, that kind of time frame. And the other 2 systems really don't get to it very much. But watch this. The system becomes sweeping through on Monday. that starts off in the Pacific Northwest and goes through the Corn Belt Monday night into Tuesday. Well, it brings that another front that comes through that might give a chance of rain to those locations that I kind of just circled there. So I think harvest will continue in this area. It is certainly going to be delayed here, and it is very much going to be delayed, down here, getting over into the kind of Boot Heel of Missouri. This is going to be a wet area. And you can see that extends into parts of Tennessee and Kentucky as well. And where that high pressure system tries to stay, you can see we stay dry down in this area. Okay, so that's a detailed look at the things we're kind of paying attention to here. What about temperatures? All right, as we animate out temperatures, you just saw the first system go through. Let's rewind it. So getting into the day on Thursday, remember, the system is still trying to move out of parts of Colorado into Nebraska and then eventually go off in this direction. So to the south of it, much, much warmer than average conditions. We're going to go back up into the 90s for a big section of the country. Now look at this. As I get the midday Thursday into Thursday evening and Thursday overnight hours, you can really easily identify the position of the cold front. The much warmer than average air out here and the really cool air coming in behind it. We'll talk about that in a second. Now that front sweeps through, and the colder air is there, getting through the day on Saturday and lingers a little bit on Sunday. But watch this. As the next trough comes out, the warmer air rebounds temporarily before the next trough sweeps through. See it there? And that brings in our next shot at some colder air. We're just kind of animating you forward here, getting all the way out to next Thursday morning. Okay, with all of that, I want to talk about some risk for frost. Behind the first system on Friday morning, the National Digital Forecast Database, so this comes straight from the National Weather Service, has this area right up in here at risk of seeing a low 30 temperature possibility early in the morning on Friday morning. So we're going to have to watch that one. Meanwhile, out ahead of that boundary, look at this. This whole area is going to be having overnight lows that are above 70. Remember now, the next big system that comes moving through the Corn Belt, this will be next Thursday morning, it may potentially be able to bring a strong enough cold front in through here that once again we go back toward those low 30s in the northern part of the Corn Belt, which is the kind of the time of year that we expect to see that. So I want to kind of just talk a little bit about frost potential. Okay, I went out and I grabbed the top 10 coldest Octobers because really as we move out of September and October, we want to know what is our temperature and precipitation patterns going to look like. So the top 10 coldest Octobers have featured this pattern in the upper levels. What is it? It's a deep trough off the Aleutian Islands, a big ridge over western parts of North America that plunges into a deep trough over the east. And what this does is this allows cold air in this area, so I'll kind of put a C there, to kind of continually penetrate here into the northern plains, into the Great Lakes states. That's what a flow pattern like this does. Now, just to let you know, I'm showing you this because we are seeing the longer range models head toward this configuration as we end September and go into October. And again, that's a pretty sizable ridge right in that area. But this is not a wet pattern. Just to kind of show you what a wet pattern is, I'll change my color here just to kind of give you an idea. That's when we tend to have these big troughs that align right in through here that build into a ridge over the east. And that's because you can funnel all that moisture around like we're seeing right now. So if we do go into a pattern such that it looks something like this, where we have a big ridge out west, well, that kind of pattern is not necessarily wet. And why I'm showing you that? Well, this is what we're currently getting out of the end of the European model run using the Ensemble product. And over on the right, I have the GFS. Now, what does it show you? Trough here, ridge there, trough, ridge. Okay, that's the same kind of pattern we just took a look at right in through there. So if we start this, and this is valid through the kind of the beginning of October, this is valid through October 4th, if the European model and its ensemble members are not too washed out and they kind of give you this perspective, well, that means we could settle into a cooler pattern for maybe some time here. But remember, as always, this is looking at an ensemble average. We will have to pay close attention to the week-by-week forecast as we get into it. But the longer-range European model, the European weeklies, try to hang on to this pattern as well. The GFS has something similar, but it's got a little bit different configuration on its trough pattern. It's kind of got this feature going on. And the GFS has not been doing the best job recently, so I'm going to toss it out. Now, to finish up this forecast, what I want to point out to you is that we've had over the last 7 to 10 days quite a bit of precipitation in parts of Brazil. Now, remember, this area is dry, coming off of their dry season, but they've had enough precipitation that we started to see planting efforts get going. They were just allowed to plant over the last couple of days here, just the beginning of planting time period, and they've had some precipitation, which is great for getting that soybean to get going early and to germinate. Now, the question is, where are they going in the near term? If you kind of take a look at this, this is the next 10 days, temperatures on the left and precipitation on the right. You can see Mato Grosso getting down to Mato Grosso do Sul, then all the way down here into southern Brazil growing region. So we're down here now in Uruguay even, but Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul, this area, we do have a wetter pattern right in through here moving forward. That might hinder planting efforts when you get down into this area, but overall, this is a relatively favorable pattern, also given the fact that they're warm here. Same thing when you get into Argentina's major productive areas, which would be in Cordoba here and the Buenos Aires province, which is a little bit farther to the south of there. So I probably should have extended the Cordoba region to be down here. But overall, this basically means we're getting things going in South America. And just to point out one last thing right now, when we think about what makes really, really bad years for South America, especially in Brazil's major growing regions, when we look at the top, lowest yielding years, we typically find La Nina conditions brewing in the Central Pacific. The correlation is not as strong as you want it to be, but right now we see the opposite of that. So this is going to be a year where we're going to have to watch week by week what's going on in South America to see how they are accumulating precipitation and what things are looking at in terms of the health of the corn and soybean crop there. So we'll start giving you updates every week on this. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We hope you look forward to our next ag forecast coming out on Monday morning. In the meantime, head to Agrible.com to learn how you can get real-time agronomic and sustainability insights all at the touch of a button. Look forward to giving you another update after the weekend.